Hey folks. Well, I promised you a different backdrop, and that's what you're getting. However, this is not a backdrop from our new house. This is a backdrop from my parents' house, because I'm up in Santa Fe, because there's work to do on the old house. It's a long story, but I'm here, and you're getting a new backdrop. But much more interestingly, I was listening to. So I picked up Critical Path the other day by Buckminster Fuller. It's an Audible. I actually bought the Audible like only days after it had been released. I searched it and I found that it had been released on Audible like 1 week before I searched it out. And I was like, this is clearly intended for me to receive right now. And started listening to it. And because I've been commuting between Santa Fe and Albuquerque, I've actually been making some progress on this book. And it's, I think I've maybe mentioned some things about this book before, but it's spectacular. It's unbelievable. He was such a wizard of a human being, Buckminster Fuller, that it's almost hard to comprehend. You listen to it and he's writing it in 1980, which at this point is 61 years ago, or 41 years ago. 41 years ago. I can do math. But yeah, basically almost my lifetime ago. And he was in his 80s at the time. But what he's talking about is just, it sounds like it's written today. It sounds like it was written about today, about today's society, about today's cultural trends, about today's technological trends, and the way that society and culture and technology are interpenetrating. And it's just wizardry in terms of what his ability to see the future, essentially. And the thing that that jumped out at me today as I was listening, I was kind of driving around dealing with something for the Santa Fe house. And what struck me is by listening to him, he talks about he basically embarked on a journey of, he called it like an experiment, like a self-experiment, where he calls himself Guinea Pig B for Guinea Pig Bucky, Guinea Pig Buckminster. And he basically decided to live his life exclusively for the benefit of all humanity. He just decided that's how I'm going to make every decision, is whether I can employ my talent, my intellect, my know-how in the service of all of humanity. And he just goes, the whole book is filled with his kind of visions and references to how he just truly believes and is actually trying to actualize and manifest, abundance for all humanity, life support, basic sustenance for all humanity, but also then a tremendously high standard of living for all of humanity. And how he talks about that's totally possible. That's absolutely something we can accomplish. And again, he's speaking 40 years ago. So that's, and as he's talking about this, and he's going into these principles, and he's going into his kind of analysis and his perspective. What came through to me was just his perspective on human evolution. And as I listened to it, I realized that my sense of time was expanding. I started to think back to like 2012, 9 years ago, when I moved to Santa Fe. And I was thinking of it because I used to go to an osteopath who used to talk about Buckminster Fuller all the time, and it was kind of like kicking around my head. And I thought to myself, was that already 9? Has it been 9 years? It feels like that was yesterday. It's like, if 9 years feels like it was, if that event from 9 years ago feels like it was yesterday, what's the rest of my life going to feel like? If 9 years can blip by, how many more 9-year increments have I got? It wasn't in that wasn't in a dire or sort of like, it didn't make me think about my own mortality as much as it made me recognize how short a human life is on a cosmic timescale. When you start thinking about a cosmic timescale and looking at trends, human trends over vast periods of time, all of a sudden your life starts to feel so small. And again, not in a bad way, but I was like, because Bucky talks about, I've invested, he's writing, in 1980. So he's like, I've invested 57 years of my life. And and then he talks about at the outset of this experiment, I knew that I only had about 50 to 60 years of my life to invest in this experiment. And that thinking of him, thinking of himself and thinking of his life as an investment in the evolution of humanity, basically. And then his drawing out of these various time scales and these various scales of progress that you can observe over history. It just puts things into a perspective where it just really came through to me like, wow, how brief is this life, and therefore how valuable is every moment of our time. What am I leaning into right now? What am I making important right now? What am I investing the rest of my life in? What do I care about enough to invest, to think of myself? One of the things he said is he basically decided, I'm not going to earn a living. I'm going to make no effort to earn a living. I'm going to make every decision about my career, every decision about what projects I pursue or which direction I go. I'm going to make it on the basis of, do I think it's a promising avenue of exploration and experimentation that might ultimately lead to the betterment of all humanity? And he said, and I'm going to gauge whether I'm on the right track or not by whether or not the universe reciprocates that effort with remuneration. In other words, well, if I'm able to thrive in my own life and my own family's life as a result of the direction that I'm going in my scientific work, then I'll know that I'm on the right track. But I'm not going to pursue monetary gain for myself ever, because that's not the same orientation to the world or to the universe. And that's how he lived. And he talks about occasionally, he got kind of criticized for that, and family friends would be like, what the hell are you doing? And he would, take a job to assuage them, and it would immediately lead him off course, and he'd have to disentangle himself and come back to this mission that he was on, and just keep going that way. And it's just such a giant experiment. But when you hear him writing at age 85 or whatever, it's this ginormous perspective that he created for himself, and then which he kind of bequeathed to the world, right? I mean, he just delivered these principles, this understanding. And a lot of times, these are design concepts that are still in use. A lot of design concepts that still haven't been used because they're still kind of out ahead of where we are in our own vision of what the world can be. So that's all kind of been hitting home for me today. And the biggest thing that jumped out at me was this time scale thing. I was like, wow, thinking like this turns my life into this tiny little thimble of water that I can pour on one side of the scale or the other. And that's really what I'm here. That's really what I'm here to do. That's really what we're here to do, is decide where to put our intention, our focus, our psychic energy while we're here. And I think recognizing the briefness of it, not in a kind of sad, grief-stricken, woe is my mortality kind of way, but just but recognizing the briefness of it as in terms of activating every moment and really just provoking us to action in every moment. And remembering that now is when we have this life. Now is when we have this energy, this time, this psychic ability invest ourselves in something that we find meaningful, now is that time. There's no other time, and it's a brief time. You know, that's what's been coming through for me today. It's kind of a powerful thing, but also really welcome in some ways. It's, you know, it affirms those actions that really feel in alignment with my highest calling and my own deepest passion. So it's really it's cool to just read someone whose perspective is so vast after so many years of doing this, and who was a, you know, bona fide genius to begin with. It's really cool to that context just really adds even more clarity and even more import to that project, you know, in that project in my life. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Kind of a big one, but I hope you enjoy that. Definitely check out Critical Path by Buckminster Fuller. It's on Audible. You can listen to it in your car. But yeah, thanks for listening, folks. I love you, appreciate you. You know, as always, it's amazing to have you witnessing and receiving and engaging with me on these ideas, and just with what's coming through me right now. So much appreciated. Love you all. See you soon.